Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the systemic advantages of real estate, exactly as they're laid out in the source material, Brick by Brick, Rising to the Top of New York Real Estate. We're going to completely unpack how our financial and tax systems are structurally designed to reward land ownership. It's a fascinating look at the absolute nuts and bolts of wealth, and we'll see exactly how property fundamentally shapes generational prosperity.
So let's start right off the bat with a question the text poses. Why does a landlord earning $80,000 pay almost nothing in taxes, while a teacher making that exact same amount pays around $20,000? I mean, it kind of feels like a glitch in the matrix, doesn't it? But as the author reveals, this isn't a mistake at all. It's exactly how the system is wired. Let's look at the specific tax codes and financial mechanics that make this massive disparity completely legal and, frankly, entirely expected by those in the know.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The core premise here begins with a very simple, undeniable truth. Every single fundamental human need relies on physical land. Think about it. Food, shelter, clothing, and medicine. Without farmland, we literally have no food security. Even the biggest corporate giants on the stock market rely entirely on crop fields somewhere. Shelter obviously requires physical space. Clothing relies on natural resources. And modern medicine, well, that needs physical hospitals and plant origins. Basically, everything begins with the earth.
And here is a super surprising reality check from the text. Even when we think we've completely moved past physical assets, we really haven't. You might think cryptocurrency, for example, is entirely digital, just floating out there, totally untethered from the physical world. But those digital coins exist on servers. Those servers have to sit in massive physical data centers. And those data centers, yep, they sit on real estate. So even our most abstract, high-tech digital wealth is permanently anchored to physical property.
That brings us to Section 1, the Hidden Wealth Divide.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how the author explains the gap in financial education. If real estate is the true foundation of wealth, why isn't everyone investing in it? Well, the text argues it comes down to how we're taught. We're primarily educated to be employees, to polish up our resumes instead of acquiring property deeds. The result is two entirely different financial realities. You've got earners who work for wages, pay their taxes right off the top, and try to survive on whatever's left over. On the flip side, you have owners who collect rent, deduct all their expenses, use depreciation, and pay taxes last, if they pay them at all.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Currency and Inflation Game.
To really understand how these owners maintain their edge, the book insists we have to look at money itself. The Federal Reserve doesn't just print money in the traditional sense we picture, it creates digital currency as debt. This means every single dollar out there in circulation exists simply because someone owes it back, with interest. And banks totally leverage this system. They issue mortgages, package them up into securities, and basically flip those contracts for profit, all while the everyday borrower is locked into 30 years of steady payments.
Which naturally brings us to inflation. The text frames inflation as this sort of silent tax. Let's put that into perspective. Take a wage earner with a $50,000 salary. They are literally watching their purchasing power shrink every single year as more and more dollars chase the exact same goods. Now, contrast that reality with a property owner. Their $1 million building might appreciate to $1.5 million over 5 years, plus they're collecting higher rents, all while their monthly mortgage payment stays exactly the same. So inflation constantly hurts the saver, but it heavily rewards the owner.
So, let's jump into Section 3, the Real Estate Tax Advantage.
This is where the text introduces what it calls a wealth-building cheat code, the IRS tax code itself. Let's revisit that earlier question with some hard numbers from the source. A wage-earning teacher making an $80,000 gross income takes the standard deduction and hands over roughly $20,000 in federal and state taxes. Ouch. But a landlord generating that exact same $80,000, but in net rental income? They utilize high deductions and what are known as phantom expenses. Their estimated tax paid? Near zero.
So how on earth is a near zero tax bill actually possible? Well, the magic word here is depreciation. It's an IRS rule that allows owners to deduct the cost of a building over 27.5 years for residential properties and 39 years for commercial ones. The author calls these phantom expenses because the owner gets to deduct this massive paper loss from their taxes every single year, even as the physical property is in reality going up in market value.
Let's make this totally concrete with a specific number from one of the book's case studies, $72,700. That is the annual depreciation deduction for an investor who buys a $2.5 million apartment building in Queens. By simply separating the land value from the building value, they get to deduct $72,700 from their income every year. So if that building brings in $100,000 in rental cash flow, their taxable income violently shrinks down to under $30,000. It's wild.
But wait, depreciation is really just the start. The author details how landlords systematically write off expenses in 3 distinct phases. First up, repairs. These are immediately deductible in the same year, like fixing a leaky pipe. Second are capital improvements, like say a $120,000 new roof. That gets added to the cost basis and depreciated over time. Finally, there are operating deductions, which cover absolutely everything from landscaping to property management fees. By combining all these maintenance deductions with depreciation, owners can practically erase their taxable income. Their actual bank account grows, but on paper, they look broke to the IRS.
And you know, these benefits absolutely continue even when it's time to cash out and sell. When a married couple sells their primary residence, the tax code grants them a massive $500,000 capital gains exclusion. Think about that. If they bought a home for $500,000 and sell it for $1 million, they pocket that entire $500,000 profit absolutely 100% tax-free.
Now, what about investment properties? This brings us to what the text identifies as the ultimate scaling tool, the 1031 exchange. This is a brilliant provision in the tax code that allows investors to legally defer paying capital gains taxes indefinitely. The only catch? They just have to reinvest the profits from a sale into a new, like-kind property.
To see the sheer power of the 1031 exchange in action, the source material shares this fantastic mini-narrative of a Brooklyn family. They buy a duplex for $200,000 in year 1. Fast forward to year 30, and they sell it for $2.5 million. But instead of handing over a huge chunk of that profit to the IRS, they use a 1031 exchange to roll all that money tax-free into 3 brand new properties. Over the next 20 years, that portfolio balloons to $6 million. When the parents eventually pass away, their heirs inherit the whole portfolio with what's called a stepped-up basis. The property value instantly resets to $6 million for tax purposes, legally wiping out all prior taxable gains. Boom. That is generational wealth passed on with absolutely zero tax.
All right, that takes us to Section 4, Unique Advantages of Land.
So the crucial point the author is making here is that when you synthesize all of these factors, you realize real estate just behaves completely differently than any other asset class out there. It has tangibility. You can literally live in it and touch it. It has absolute scarcity because, well, you simply cannot manufacture more land. It offers incredible leverage, where a bank lets you control $1 million asset with only $200,000 down. And it provides dual returns. You get cash flow today and appreciation tomorrow, all while acting as a built-in hedge against inflation.
To really hammer this home, the text explicitly contrasts the stock market with real estate. Picture a stock investor who makes a $50,000 profit in dividends. They get hit with a standard tax rate, immediately losing a pretty significant chunk of that money, like $10,000 straight to the IRS. But a real estate landlord who earns $50,000 in cash flow, they apply their depreciation deductions, report zero taxable income, and legally keep their entire $50,000 profit. It's a completely different ballgame. Let's move into our final section, Section 5, Building a Generational Legacy. This source material expands this idea outward, arguing that real estate doesn't just build individual bank accounts, it literally shapes civilizations. National prosperity is inseparably tied to land development. Think about it. London grew into a financial capital through centuries of structured land use. Tokyo rebuilt itself post-war through highly efficient urban housing. Hong Kong built upward, creating a vertical global engine. New York City transformed land into monumental opportunity. Dubai reimagined an entire desert, and Singapore maximized every single inch of its small island to lift millions into the middle class. A nation's prosperity absolutely requires a real estate vision.
So, for individuals trying to navigate and succeed in this immense global system, the author outlines a very specific roadmap. They call it the 4 L's of real estate success: learn, lead, listing, and leverage. This is essentially the actionable framework they suggest for adapting to market changes and unlocking these systemic opportunities for yourself. As we wrap up this explainer, there's a pretty powerful quote in the material that hits the nail on the head. Warren Buffett often says his secretary pays a higher tax rate than he does.
It really perfectly drives home the ultimate lesson we've been exploring today. The financial and tax systems legally favor owners who live on assets, dividends, and capital gains, far more than people who earn a standard wage. The rules of the game are undeniably written for the owners.
Which leaves us with this really provocative final thought from the text. If land is food, if land is shelter, and if land truly is wealth, if real estate is the foundational bedrock of global prosperity and personal freedom, how will you claim your piece of the earth? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.